Hi, in this video I want to introduce you to a Python module called Typer. It's from the same author of FastAPI, and it aims to make command line interfaces as easy and intuitive to make as FastAPI is for RESTful APIs using Python. So this package is really, I think, a really step up if you're using the argparse library, part of the standard library from Python. It allows a really easy configuration of subcommands and using arguments and options is really intuitive and easy to create in this module. It also comes with another package called Rich out of the box, which allows for really great, beautiful printing to the console. It's far better than just using the baked-in print statement that comes with Python. And it also has some really neat little features, such as automatically being able to import your environment variables into your arguments and options. So you don't have to go and manually do that and manage that yourself within your script. So I'm going to show off some of those features here in this video. So to get started here, we'll initialize a new poetry project. So I'm going to call poetry new, and I'm just going to call this CLI example. So we have our CLI example. Let's cd into it. And we'll go ahead and just create a Git repository real quick. So we'll get init and git add star and git commit -m initial commit. Now for our poetry, the only package we're going to need to add is going to be tracker. So poetry add, and then we're going to do tracker. Or sorry. So the only so for poetry, the only thing we need to add is going to be poetry add, and we want to do typer. So we'll type enter on there and add that package. Okay, so now that we have it, we can now do a poetry install. And we got our all of our dependencies added. Let's go into the poetry shell. And then I just like to check to make sure everything worked out. So I'm just going to go into the Python interpreter here and just make sure that we can import typer. And it looks like we were able to, so it looks like everything worked out. So now the next thing we'll need to do is get started on our project. So let's go into our IDE here. And let me zoom in a little bit for you guys so you can see it a little bit better. So the file that we're going to want to use is we're going to go through on our CLI, and we're going to add a new file called main.py. So for this project, we're just going to have a very simple database, mock database. Basically, it's just going to have a list of users. So we'll be able to add a user, delete users, and then just list the users. That's all this command line interface is going to do. So basically, what that's going to look like is three simple functions. So we'll have add users, delete users, and then list the users. So that's the three functions that we're going to have. Now, in order to make this a typer CLI, we need to first import typer. And similar to like how you instantiate the app for FastAPI, you're going to do app is equal to typer.typer. And that'll be the name there. And all we need to do now is we're going to have these be subcommands. So we're just going to say at, so we'll give it a decorator at app.command. And that's going to be all we need to do there. And we'll do that for all three of these here. So now if we go into our terminal here, and let me do a terminal poetry shell to get into the poetry environment. And now if we do Python, and let me cd into the that directory. If we do a Python main.py -s help, let's see, did I not save it? Oh, sorry, we also need to do one more thing. So we'll say if main name is equal to main, and then we'll go through and instantiate our app. So app is callable, so we'll call it, and then now if we do help, you'll see we get this nice nifty little help command here. So it gives us the usage, it shows us the options here, and it shows us the subcommands. So we can see we have add users, delete users, and list users. So we can actually go on here and say add users, and it'll run even though right now there's nothing going on. If I do something that I don't have, like a jump or just something random, it's going to complain and say, you know, jump is actually not a subcommand. So it automatically is picking up, you know, what are valid subcommands that we can use with our CLI application. So now that we have our subcommands, the next thing we want to do is start using arguments. So for example, on our add users, we may want to have our users, and we may want to pass in a list of strings for our users. Whenever I do that, and we go back to our add users, and if I type in the help, you'll see it actually automatically pulls in those arguments. So it was able to read it just from the way I annotated the function call. So you know, there's no default. It already has its required and a list of users. And so just to prove that it works, I can say for user and users, print the user. And we can do it in there, and let's just give it some names. So we'll give it Max, Jill, and Jane. And then you can see user Max added, Jill added, and Jane added. So it's really simple. But what you're wanting to do is obviously give some more supporting documentation. So to give some actual overall documentation for your subcommand on here, you can just give it a doc string. So on here, I'm just going to say add users to the active user database. And we can, again, go on here, add users, type the help command. And now we can see that little help description shows up, add users to the active user database. And the other thing you'll want to do is, by default, you can just simply list things out here as an argument. If for an optional, which all you need to do is, let's say for this one, it's going to be verbose. We'll give it a verbose, and it's going to be a boolean equal to false. And so now it'll be an optional argument. So now I can see on here, if verbose, we'll print it out, and then once we're done with the whole thing, we'll say completed adding users or something like that. So now if we go on here on the help, you'll see we now have an optional on here, that verbose that we did. So basically Typer is able to automatically pick up using the type annotations on the function, basically if it was an argument or if it was an option for the command line. So now I can run that, and let's do Max, Jill, and Jane. And then you can see it just says completed adding users, but then I can give it the dash verbose, and then now it'll actually do that verbose and toggle that. It'll do that toggle. So one thing that you'll probably want to do here is actually give this some better annotations. So in order to give it some better documentation, what you're going to do is import. Go from typing, import annotated. And so on here, we'll say, we'll give it a user list type. And this is going to be equal to annotated. And it's going to be a list of string. And we can give it a typer dot argument. And on there, we can give it a help string that says the list of users. And then same thing for the verbose type. We can give it an annotated. This is going to be a Boolean, and we can give it a typer.option. And the help on here is going to be equal to show verbose output. So on here, we'll go and change these up here. So we'll say this will be the user list type. And instead of a Boolean, we're going to say this is a verbose type. And then now if we go back and pull up the help menu, now you can see we get a little bit more description about both our users. So we see that list of users right here. And on our options, we can show the verbose output for our options. So that's really handy. So the next thing that we're going to want to do is go through and do the same for our delete users. So we can do the same thing with our delete users. We can say our users, and I'm actually just going to go and copy these two lines here. And so what we're going to do here is, again, we'll do another loop. So we'll say, we'll give it a doc string, and we'll say this will delete users from active user database. And what I'm actually going to do real quick is just give a fake little database here. So I'm going to say active users. This could be equal to Jack, Jill, Jane, John, and Jamie. And so here what we're going to do on our delete the users, we're going to say, we're just going to simply go through our users real quick for user and users. If user not in active users, we're going to print out print could not delete user not in the active user database. And let's turn this into an F string. Else print user deleted. And so let's go and test this out. So we can do delete users, and we'll do Jack, Jill, and then Max. And I put the wrong one, delete users, Jack, Jill. Oh. And verbose needs to be equal to false. Let it know that's by default. Don't show it. And so as you can see, we get, Jack's deleted, Jill's deleted, and we couldn't delete Max. He's not in the active user database. So that's good and all. But we can actually make the output look a little bit nicer. So whenever you download a typer, you by default get another library called rich. And so what you can do with rich is clean up your print a little bit better. So instead of doing these regular print statements, we can do a rich.print and a rich.print here. And if we run this again, you're not going to be able to tell too much of a difference, but what you can do with rich is now we can style it. So on here, we can give it a bold, for example, bold yellow. And then end it again with a bold yellow. And then now if we do it on here, you can see now that the fact that we couldn't delete Max, that's kind of spelled out better to the user here because of it's in a yellow highlighting. And we can even do some emojis here. So we could go here and type in warning. And then now if we do that, we'll get a little emoji, a little warning emoji here. Spelling out that the user couldn't get deleted. And similarly for this one, we can do something similar here. We can say green This one here is green. And for the emoji, we can type, to get the list of all the emojis that Rich has, you can do Python -module, and we can do rich.emoji. And if you do this, it'll give you a list of all the emojis that are valid. And what you can actually do on here, just grep it, and I'll just do a check. That way I can find the ones that have a check mark, which is what I'm looking for. So it looks like the emoji that I'm going to want to use is a white check mark, this one right here. So what I'm going to do on here is do the white check mark, white check mark. And then now if we run it, you can see we get the white check mark there next to the user Jack deleted, user Jill deleted, and then we couldn't delete Max. So that's really cool. But the thing is, since we're adding users to our database and deleting users, these two methods here may be protected methods that we want to validate the credentials of whoever's running the program to make sure that they have proper authentication to access those methods. So we can add in a couple more types on here. So I'm going to say a username type, and this is going to be a string, and this is going to be a typer.option. Help is going to be equal to your username. And then we're going to do a password type annotated. It's going to be a string as well. Typer.option. And help is going to be equal to your password. And so, for example, now we can go on here and type in a username. This could be a username type, and we'll make it equal to the admin. And then we'll do another one called password type, and this is going to be a password type. So if we go to our add users now, add users -- help, we'll see we get the password, the verbose, and you can see the password is required on here. So for example, we could do password is equal to password. But this isn't really how you really want to handle it, because you don't want to be typing your password into the terminal prompt where anyone can see it. So what you'll actually want to do on here is we can actually have a feature where it actually prompts us for the user's password. So let's go on to the password type, and under option we can type prompt is equal to true. And then now, if we type add users Jack, Jill, and Jane, it's going to ask for our password. And I can type some stuff here. Obviously, we still don't want to have the password visible in the terminal. So another thing you can do on here is show there's another parameter on here called hide input, and we can put that to true. And so now if we go into there and we do that, it's going to ask us for the password. I'm typing right now, but as you can see, it's not showing up in the terminal, and there it goes. So let's go through and add a simple admin user account on here. So I'm going to say the admin, it's just going to be equal dictionary to username. It's going to be admin, and the password is just going to be to password. So Typer does have a feature called callbacks where you can basically, before you pass in an option to a function, it can go to like a callback function ahead of time and then do some checking against the option that you did, for example, some validation. However, when I was going through this, I couldn't find a way to do a validation on two options simultaneously. So for example, in this case, we want to have a username and a password both get authenticated at the same time because you need to know both of those pieces of information. For example, when you're looking up in a database to ensure that you have the proper credentials. So if anyone knows how to do a callback function using Typer where you can access two options at the same time, feel free to leave me a comment and let me know. I'd be really interested in hearing about how to do that. But the way that I've kind of gone around that is just making my own decorator function myself. So that's what I'm going to demonstrate here. And it might be good for you if you're unfamiliar with how to create a decorator function. So to create the decorator function, I'm going to call this decorator called requires credentials. So this will be the function that we decorate our functions that need the credentials to gain access to them. So I'm just going to pass it one argument here. It's going to be the function that we're decorating. And the next thing is actually we need to import from functional tools. We need to import wraps. And so what we're going to do on here is say @wraps. And what we're wrapping is that function. And we're just going to call this our wrapper function. And it's going to have arguments and keyword arguments. So what Typer is going to do is the username and password is going to get passed down as keyword arguments to the function. So what I want to do is look in those keyword arguments, and I want to get the username out of there. And I want to say, okay, if the username is not equal to the admin, comma, username, then what I'm going to want to do is do rich.print, and again, we can do bold red. We'll say invalid credentials, bold red. And let me see if I want to get an emoji on there too. So let's do python-module rich.emoji and grep it for a lock. And I want to do the lock with key. So I'll do that. Locked with key is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to say locked with key, locked with key. And I need to indent it there. And then after that, we'll just exit with the status code of 1. And then similarly, we're going to do the similar expression here. So if we do get here, we want to check the password and the admin password. If, so I need to put these in if statements. Okay. And then finally, if we do have the correct credentials, then we can just run the function, and we can just use our args and our keyword arguments to our function. We can just return that. And then after that, we'll just go and return our wrapper. Turn our wrapper like so. And so then now we can just decorate this function with the I'm going to say requires credentials. And so now we can see if if we do our here, it's going to ask our credentials. I'm just going to type in some gibberish, and you can see we got the invalid credentials. This time I'm just going to type in password, which is our password, and now we can see it added the users. So that's how we can do some validation on our username and password. So that's really useful, and we'd probably just want to go ahead, we use the same down here for delete users, since that's also a protected path, and we'll just include our password here, and we'll do our username here. So the next thing I want to show is for our username and passwords, often what you'll want to do is you just want to get that from environment variables on your operating system. So what we can do on here is on our password type, we can actually have another parameter here called environmental env var. And on here we can just say we'll give this a environment password password. And then same thing, we can do the same with our username. We can give it an environment variable, env var, and we can say this is username. And so now if we pull up the help for our add users, you'll see we now get some additional type annotation on here. So we'll see we get this environment variable on the password and for the username. So this is telling us if we have these environmental variables set on our operating system, that basically Typer will automatically pull it from our environment variable. So let's demonstrate how we can do that. So we'll do export password is equal to password, and export username is equal to admin. And so now if we run that same command on the add users, I can do Jack, Jill, and Jane. And as you'll see here, I run that command and it completed adding the users. It didn't prompt me for the password. It automatically pulled it from an environmental variable. So that's really cool. That way you don't have to import the OS module and handle all those environmental variables within your code, checking to see if it's the correct one. Typer just handles it all out of the box for you. So that's a really nifty little feature. So the last command that we're going to go through and work through on here is this list users. Actually we don't need to give it any arguments for now, so we'll just say for user and active users, and we'll just do the rich.print. User, and then we can just kind of leave it there. And then if we go here and just do Python main.py, and then we'll say list users, we'll list users, and we'll get the users listed out. But what if this list, use your imagination and pretend that it took a little bit longer here. So we'll do import from time, import sleep. So we'll just give it a some time to sleep here, just to simulate a long load. We'll give it a 1 second delay. So now if we do it again, we kind of get the slow load with the users loading. And we could do the same thing. We could show verbose, and we can make that a verbose type. This will be equal to false. And so we can say if verbose, show this. And otherwise, once we're done, we can say rich.print done loading users. So if we do this again, let's load the users, and we can see it's just kind of sitting there stalling, and then eventually it's going to say that it's done printing the users. So one thing we can do with rich to make this look a little bit nicer is we can say from rich.progress, we can import what's called a track here. And so let's go down here, and we can wrap this active users inside of a track. So if we go to track, what we want to do here is give it the description of loading the users. Loading users. So now if we go back to our shell here, and pull up our Python, and we say list the users. Well, now see we get a nice little progress bar with the loading the users, and then it'll show done loading the users. So that's pretty nice. The other thing that we can do with rich is output tables. So we can say from rich.table import table, and we can say from rich dot let me do console import the console. So we can add this to a table. So we'll create a table called a table, and we'll give it a title equal to active users, and we'll add a column to it. And this name of the column is going to be the username, and we'll give it a justify equals to center to center the text. And we can even change the text color using the style command, style, and we'll give it magenta. And so now when we go on here, we can say table.add a row, and we'll just add the user. And then once we're done, we can load up our console. So say console is equal to console, and console.print the table. And so then if we run this again, we'll load the users, we'll load them up, and then we should get a nice little table that's output at the end. And then we can see we get a nice little little table that's user-friendly that's outputted in our terminal. So that's the main things I wanted to show with using it. There's one more thing I want to show, and that's how to actually turn it into a proper command line utility where you don't have to use Python anymore. Run the Python module. So if we go into our toml file, our pyproject.toml, let's open this up, and we can add a section here called tool.poetry.script. And what we want to do is give it the name of our of what our command line utility name is going to be. So we'll just say we'll give this CLI example will be the name of it. And the first thing we need to do is tell it which package we're in. So the package that we're working in is CLI example. So if you go here, this is the name, and we're going to give it the CLI examples, the package, and we need to give it the Python module that we're working in, which is going to be main. So we'll say look at CLI example, and we want to go to main, and then we give it a colon, and then finally we say, hey, which function does it need a call? And so for that one, we want to call that app method that we defined at the beginning of our main. So we want to call this guy right here, this app. This was our callable, and see if we go to the end here, it was basically this callable right here. So let's save that, and then we'll go back to our terminal, and what we need to do is do poetry install, and it's going to install that as a module. And so you see it says installing current project CLI example, so it's installed. And so now we should be able just to be able to run it as its own standalone. So we can do CLI example --help. And as you can see, it's running just like it was as a Python module. And so now we can run this as its own Python module. Yeah, so I mean, if you want to go through and package it up as its own module, that's pretty simple to do. You can package it, and then others can pip install it. You can either push it to PyPy, or you can have it own your own artifactory where you can publish it internally for your teams to work with. So that's pretty much a tracker. If you liked the video, leave a comment, leave a like and subscribe. Let me know what you thought. Any comments are well appreciated. Thank you. Bye.